Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report Monday, May 11th. He's Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. We're talking NFL schedule winners and losers. Teddy_covers on Twitter. Teddy, happy Monday morning to you.
Hey, happy Monday, Drew. It's great to be here, and it's great to be talking about bettable NFL games. And lines are out for, the entire season, but most importantly, lines are out for week one. Obviously, we have win totals to talk about, but what I really wanted to focus on today, when the schedule itself, actually, we already knew every team everyone was going to play. Mm-hmm. But the nuances of the schedule are extremely meaningful for bettors. And what I want to do is go through some of those nuances today. It's not just who you play, it's when and where you play them. It's what type of a team you are now as opposed to what type of a team you're going to be in December and when you face your tougher opponents. There's all kinds of issues like that, little nuances that I think will help people get an idea of maybe some of these strength of schedule numbers that you're seeing. Certainly the mainstream strength of schedule numbers, Drew, are absolute garbage. We'll do our best to give you better information to work with in that today.
And Teddy, when you say they're absolute garbage, like if you just kind of look at it from a glimpse view, there's a lot of articles out there. The Patriots have the toughest, quote unquote, just because of win percentage from last year. Baltimore Ravens have the easiest. You pretty much throw those numbers out the window.
Throwing them out the window is not strong enough, Drew. Okay, it's not. Okay. You have to take those, whatever the mainstream numbers are. Okay, there's zero. I didn't do it. I read an analysis. Again, Warren Sharp. You don't want to talk about. It does excellent NFL work.
Yeah.
And the analysis was very clear. Short term, long term. Whether you go back 1 year, you go back 3 years, you go back 5 years. Last year's records have zero predictive correlation for this year's records, for this year's win totals. There's no correlation there. The correlation where you find the advantages in schedule is based on not last year's records, but this year's season win totals. You understand why that's different? Last year, everything
Absolutely.
that happened is whatever random is. All right, the Packers went 13-3 last year. The Packers were not a team that was that deserved to go 13-3. Whatever injuries the Jets were better than their record would indicate. And some, you can go on and on one side or the other. Last year was last year, but to actually predict for this year, using this year's season win totals as your guide is predictive, is useful, and will help you. And I can go through, obviously, team by team. I've got them all listed out here based on, in terms of strength of schedule. And you don't want to make too much, a team that's ranked 15th strength of schedule versus a team that's ranked 20th. Not that big a deal. But I look very much at the teams at the very top, the very easiest schedules based on this year's win totals, and the teams at the bottom, the teams that the teams that face brutal schedules based on this year's win totals. That's where you find your edge. And the two teams you brought up, you said the Patriots, as someone said they were the easiest, the hardest?
New England. The Patriots being the hardest from last year's schedule percentage.
It's harder than it's been, but it's not the hardest. I have them in the bottom quartile, the toughest quartile, but near the bottom of that quartile. And on the other strength of that, who do you have as the easiest? Baltimore
Ravens. Yeah.
So you make a case that from a pure strength of schedule standpoint, Baltimore, I have them as, I think, the 50th easiest schedule. Which means in the top, but we're talking about New England still in the bottom quartile, Baltimore still in the top quartile. But there's a lot of nuance to the Ravens schedule that makes it even easier. But again, based just on season win totals, they're bottom five. They're not the single easiest.
Well, Teddy, how do we? I definitely get what you're saying, and off of the win totals, the better way to go. I love what you said there. It makes total sense. Where do you want to start in terms of breaking each team down?
Arizona.
Okay, Arizona Cardinals. I mean, they're a fascinating handicap in themselves from a totals perspective, from a win-loss perspective, season win totals. I think the Arizona Cardinals are as fascinating as any NFL team out there. What are you seeing off of their schedule?
So their schedule makes it even more fascinating. Okay. And it really does. Let me just pull it up real quick, and I apologize. I had it open and I X'd out of it for some reason. I had all the schedules open, but I had with Arizona in particular. Okay, when you talk about the off season that they had, all right, there aren't many teams that ace the off season better than Arizona. They improved offensively, they improved defensively, they didn't lose any key piece of their coaching staff, returning quarterback. Arizona had a really good offseason prior to the release of the schedule. The schedule comes out. And you say, oh, you open up at San Francisco. That's tough. Well, you have a young team with a bunch of new pieces that's talented. What do you want early, Drew? You want teams you can beat.
Yes.
You want to get some confidence.
Yes.
After they open at San Fran, at home against Washington, at home against Detroit, at Carolina, at the Jets.
That's winnable.
All very winnable. Okay. And if Arizona's all of a sudden 4-1 or even 3-2 at that point, that's a different team than the team that started out slow last year. So the fact that they have a lot of their easy games early, some teams you don't view that as a benefit. For a team like Arizona in particular, a young team, lots of new pieces, lots of potential. When you have a chance for a 4-1 start for a team like that, that can go a long way over the course of the entirety of the season. And of course, it toughens later on. But I viewed Arizona's schedule as being very favorable in that regard. And the one thing that I want to do real quick, Drew, and before we get into more teams, just in terms of the strength of schedule numbers. All right, NFC West, AFC West, AFC North. Those are the three toughest divisions based on this year's win totals. Would you agree with that? NFC West, AFC West, AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would. Short answer.
The weakest divisions, AFC East.
AFC East, yep.
AFC South.
Okay.
NFC East.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, so that's based on this year's season win totals. So what we're doing with all of these teams, we're paying attention. Who are your division mates? And the NFC West faces, the AFC East and the NFC East. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
So they get two of the weeks in their, two of the weaker divisions in their schedule. And then, of course, they play the other NFC West teams. But the fact that their two divisions both come against, quote unquote, the weaker divisions, AFC East and NFC East, in my mind, for the entire division, that makes me less likely to bet them under the total. There's one team in the division I'm looking at betting under, and that may be Seattle's the team on my short list for in the NFC West that I'm looking at under. But the fact that they play AFC East and NFC East, two of the weaker divisions, probably makes me less likely to get involved with a Seahawks under. Or if I do get involved with the Seahawks under, it'll be a smaller wager. That's not going to be a big ticket size wager because the schedule is so easy. So for Arizona, this works out very well when it comes to that early schedule. And again, we'll go through team by team, or most of these teams. I don't know stuff for everything. There's lots of teams, I shouldn't say lots, but half the teams look at the schedule and say, okay, that's what the schedule is.
Right.
But there's a good half of them that you're like, yeah, okay, stand out. This stands out. That stands out. And that's what we want to talk about today. So Arizona stands out, absolutely. Mm-hmm. As being a schedule that works well early, that makes me more likely to bet Arizona over the win total. And in terms of futures on Arizona, that early schedule, if you want to take a shot on division or a conference or something like that, more likely to make a bet like that, given their schedule, than I would have before the schedule came out.
Okay, that makes total sense. So Arizona, a good team to start. Should we stay in the NFC West, and you got another team there, or
no? Just ABC order? I mean, honestly, I took my notes in alphabetical order today. So
okay, let's do that.
Yeah, and for Atlanta's a great team to talk about. Are they next?
Okay. Let's do it. They make sense. It is an A.
So Atlanta is a team that initially, going into the offseason, I'm like, man, there's hope for the Falcons. I'm very interested in the Falcons. I think they might be underrated. 2 years in a row, we've seen Atlanta be a dead team going in December, and 2 years in a row, they played hard for Dan Quinn and saved his job down the stretch. I view that as a positive, not as a negative. Mm-hmm. And then you start looking at that Falcons schedule. All right. After the bye, all right, this is the back half of the schedule. They get New Orleans twice. They get Tampa twice. They get Kansas City. They get at the Chargers and Vegas. So their last 7 games, they'll be dogs in at least 5 of them, maybe 6. That's not what I want for a team that has a coach on the hot seat already and pulled something out of their ass each of the last 2 years to save his job and play well in December. This year, their December schedule is brutal. So initially, Atlanta over 7.5 wins. Yeah, that intrigued me. You look at how the schedule itself plays out, and the way that schedule closes, and all of a sudden, the Falcons over 7.5, not quite as excited about that bet as I was prior to the schedule release.
Okay, and just to kind of play devil's advocate here, you say two games against the Saints, 2 games against the Bucs towards the end, and factoring that in as a negative in the scheduling. Anything with the 2 aging quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and being towards the end of the season that might be a positive for the Falcons in your view?
It might be, but on paper, again, right now, all we can do is look on paper, and we say, Tampa's an elite team on paper. New Orleans is an elite team on paper. When you're facing 4 of those games plus Kansas City over the last 7 weeks of the season, it's a tough closing stretch, even if Breeze and or Brady are not at 100% by that stage of the campaign.
Makes total sense. Guys, we're going in ABC order. Down the NFL winners and losers of the schedule. He's Teddy Covers at Teddy_Covers on Twitter. NFL season over-under win report, sportsmemo.com. Best in the business at it for decades now, hitting at a high rate, winning percentage. What's the next team up, alphabetical order, Teddy?
So I have something here on Buffalo that I wanted to talk about. That's worth noting. All right, the Bills have largely been a national TV afterthought.
Right.
For quite some time.
Since the Super Bowl era.
For the last 25 years or whatever it is. This year, when we look at the Bills, and particularly down the stretch, all of a sudden Buffalo's got the high profile. They play Kansas City on Thursday Night Football. They play at San Fran on Monday Night Football. They play at New England on Monday Night Football. Now, they're all tough games, but they're getting TV games, in December. 2 Monday Night Football appearances in December, and that's something that tells me, and they have a Sunday Night Football as well. They have the Steelers on Sunday night during that in December. So San Fran, Pittsburgh, New England, all national TV games in December. The Bills haven't had those in December in the last 25 years. So the powers that be are interested in Buffalo being perhaps a legit contender this year. And based on paper, but this schedule doesn't make me like the Bills any less. I'll just put it that way. The fact that they have the high-profile games, the high-profile TV games in December, probably a good thing for Bills over bettors.
Okay. And guys in the chat box, welcome in Ski Prophet, our boy Teddy. He's in the house. David Chan, Brian Watson, Abel, welcome in, man. Good morning to you. We got Teddy a question here in terms of doing research for this show. Wait, it's a maximum of 5 night games in the NFL. Did you see that rule?
I don't know if it's a rule, but teams never get more than 5 night games. Yeah, I don't know if it's an absolute rule or not. But they want to make it so that it's not every week. It's not the Cowboys on TV,
Yeah. That rule kind of just caught me off guard. I didn't know, but at least according to one website that I was reading, that was a quote unquote rule. So Buffalo, next team up, Teddy.
So I got notes here on. Let's talk about some of the C's, man. There's good stuff for the C's. We'll start in Carolina. Okay. Anyone that wants to bet the Panthers over their win total better look at that Panthers schedule. Look at them. It's just brutal for a team like Carolina. And again, NFC South, all right, plays AFC West, one of the tougher divisions, and NFC North, which is grades out as a neutral division. When you look at Carolina, though, where's the break? Where are the winnable games? Where's the easy stretch at home? That's a tough schedule, and it doesn't ease up. Sometimes you see teams that have these brutal schedules and they ease up down the stretch. No, like Denver, Green Bay, New Orleans. I guess it's a benefit to play the Saints week 17 when maybe they're resting somebody. And there's something to be said for that. But you look at Carolina and you look at their schedule and you say, very clearly, this is not a team I can bet over. The Panthers are under or pass for me when it comes to season win totals. When it comes to Cincinnati, here's Joe Burrow. Let's make things good for Joe Burrow in his first NFL season. How about this for your rookie quarterback? Not 1, not 2, 3 sets of back-to-backs on the road. Not for the season. You have all of that before the bye week.
That's going to be rough.
Yeah, they got 3 different sets of back-to-back roadies for a rookie quarterback before the bye, before the coach even has extra time. Hey, take a couple days to breathe, and now let's figure out what we've done. Another bad team whose schedule makes them worse. Cincinnati gets no breaks from the schedule makers. And, you say, all right, these bad teams are going to be bad. Cincinnati, on paper, given their schedule, is not a team I can play over the total. Again, the AFC North, in general, you say this is a bet-on division. Why? Because they play the NFC East and the AFC South, which are 2 of the bet-against divisions that we talked about. So in general, we want to be on some of these AFC North teams. I just don't think Cincinnati is one of those squads.
We got Ski saying, who wins the division, Bills or Pats? What about the Dolphins, Ski? I don't know, man. Did you got any early leans here with the AFC East, Eddie?
So if I had to make a bet, it would be Buffalo. Okay. I don't have to make the bet. And I have to tell you, this is someone who's been burned by Belichick, not once, not twice, but enough times that I'm a little bit reluctant to hit the stove. But on paper, New England looks like Miami.
9
on
season
paper,
win.
How much are we giving Belichick credit for? Okay. If we give Belichick credit for being the evil genius that he is, maybe they're a 9-win team. Maybe they win the division. If we grade out New England's personnel, doesn't grade out particularly well. I'll just leave it at that. So, if the Patriots are good this year, and that's why Belichick was the favorite to win Coach of the Year. Because if the Patriots win the division, Belichick wins Coach of the Year. Maybe that's your bet.
Yeah, that's not a bad bet at all. We also got Clint Diehard MMA Pod in the chat. He killed it for the UFC there, so shout out to you, David Chan, as well. What is up, guys? Thanks for joining us. And any questions, throw them out. We also got a couple questions on Twitter we'll get to at the end. The Patriots, I got something on their schedule when we get to, I guess, the end if we're going in alphabetical order. But next up, following the C's, Teddy, what do we got?
So we talked about Cincinnati. Now let's talk about Cleveland.
Okay.
Cleveland's an interesting Cleveland really is an interesting team. Defensively, they're good. Offensively, there's talent. We don't know how good Mayfield is. We don't know how good the offensive line is. Okay. But defensively, this team is a defense that can compete. From a schedule standpoint, they have a brutal schedule down the stretch. And so you're like, hey, we like Cleveland. They're going to be live to do something. And you're like, all right, let's see. What does it look like when it comes down to, what's this team got to do during crunch time? And let's see. They get 4 to 5 on. Oh, no. So I had 4 to 5 on the road down the stretch in weeks 12 and 16. But when you look at those 4 road games, they get Jacksonville, the Jets, and the Giants on the road. That's 3 winnable road games for Cleveland. So you look at the stretch and say, oh, my God, they play 4 to 5 on the road in November and December. And you say, yeah, but they can win those games. The other one's Tennessee. It's not like there's none of those games are winnable. And they have 2 divisional games at home. The key division games, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, are both at home during that span. So Cleveland got a bump schedule-wise for me. I thought that worked out well for them because they have, yes, the schedule's tough in terms of the spots, but in terms of competition, they're 500 going to the bye. I think they've got a good chance to make some noise down the stretch. So Cleveland stands out. Chicago stood out as well. And this is why the Bears stood out to me. All right, we're sticking here with the C's. And let me just pull up their schedule real quick. And I know I didn't go. I did Chicago before Cincinnati. God knows why, because my there's my alphabetical order gone to hell.
Just good information, Teddy, about the schedule. That's all people care about.
Sure. Look at Chicago's schedule to open the season: at Detroit, New York, at Atlanta, Indy, Tampa, at Carolina. And even you go at LA. You look at those pass defenses from last year. Weak. What Chicago, their biggest weakness? Their passing game didn't work. What happens if you have a passing game that doesn't work? What kind of defense do you want to face? You want to face some weak pass defenses early in the season so you can get going and get some rhythm. Just like we talked with Arizona. Facing them early games easy is going to help a team like Arizona. Facing early pass defense is easy can only help a team like Chicago, whether it's Trubisky or Foles who wins the job. The fact that they face a plethora of relatively weak pass defenses early in the season gives that passing game a chance that it probably didn't have a year ago. So I view that as a positive for Chicago. And, of course, we talk about the NFC North. Their division of the AFC South and the NFC South. AFC South, one of the weaker. NFC South actually doesn't grade as an elite, which surprised me because mentally I'm thinking that, 3 teams in that division are pretty good. But Atlanta didn't grade out, because of Atlanta and Carolina as a division with New Orleans and Tampa at the top. It just didn't grade out as one of the elites like the AFC West or the NFC West or the AFC North. Just didn't grade us out as high in this year's win total. So even though the South, I'm thinking of the South as being really tough, it's not quite as tough as those other divisions.
Makes total sense, Teddy. I mean, even Atlanta, their season win total 7.5. I mean, it's not like, too bad. We do have a question here from Joe. Teddy, will you bet a team win total before you know if the season is starting on time? Yes. I've heard some speculation that they may start playing in week 5 and then play weeks 1 through 4 after week 17. But so it wouldn't bother you.
You have a choice between making good bets right now and not. There are good bets to be made. I'm going to have my win report out. We're not going to screw around all summer. The markets are done. The markets have made their initial moves, and there's a reason why there's that. From this point here, after that initial move following the draft, the lines do sit. I'm not saying they get stale, but the action on both the over-unders, the win totals, and week 1, you have an initial flurry, and then it's slow and steady for quite some time. All that said, when it comes to these particular bets, whether it's win totals, whether it's week 1, whether it's week 2, whether it's week 5, wherever you find something, I'll start with this. I do think there's going to be an NFL season. Of all the sports, I'm most confident that the NFL is going to come back in some way, shape, or form. Number 2 is that with when you see these bets and they're good now, I feel like as long as you have the bankroll, you make the good bets now. And if the season gets canceled, if the NFL gets postponed, if it is what it is, you'll get your money refunded. You're not going to lose it, but it'll come back around. But these are bets that may not be there a month or 2 from now. So that's why I have urgency. That's why I'm putting out stuff this week. And that's why I wouldn't, as long as you have the bankroll to withstand, if you only have enough money to make one bet, I wouldn't say make it on an NFL game,
Okay.
But if you have enough bankroll to put some money away in the NFL, you can find positive expectations right now, and I would encourage you to do it. Whether the season gets played or not, we don't know. Whether week 1 gets played or not, we don't know. The thing I've heard, week 1 and 2 is division games. Week 3 and 4, there are no NFL and there are no division games at all. So if the league has to cancel weeks, it's going to be weeks 3 and 4. Flat out, they're going to get canceled. If the season goes late, we'll start week 5, and then we may have they were talking about a 14-game campaign where weeks 1 and 2 will be played after week 17, and we just skip weeks 3 and 4 entirely. If that's the case, all the season win bets will get refunded, and nothing good will happen out of all of this work. But right now, we have to assume and act accordingly like we're going to have football in the fall. Because if you don't, A, you're going to be behind, and B, you start feeling hopeless about things, and that's not the way to go.
One of those situations where, you just got to play with the cards you have, man. I mean, if they cancel it, we're going to have more problems than betting on NFL if that's the case.
This is the truth: is that if the NFL season is canceled, that's the least of our problems.
Yeah, we're going to have more problems.
Honest truth on that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So we got I guess any more C's here, Teddy? Or can we move on to
I
the
did
Detroit
Bills,
Lions?
Carolina, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland. Let's talk about Dallas.
Dallas, okay.
Dallas, schedule-wise. Again, I want to pay attention to the teams that are on TV all the time, okay? Because the league has a vested interest in making sure those teams don't lose a bunch of games early. And they tend to win a bunch of coin flips early. Some more coin flips than their fair share. Dallas has a grand total of 5 1 o'clock Eastern time starts all year. They have 11 4 o'clock starts or Sunday night starts or Thursday. The point is Dallas is going to get a lot of media attention this year. Even if you don't like the Cowboys, and I don't like the Cowboys, I'm not convinced I'm going to bet them under the total. There's a big spotlight. But that's as few 1 p.m. start times you'll ever see for a team that's not a West Coast team. Sometimes the West Coast teams will play a bunch of, even the West Coast teams play a handful of. Let's put it this way. We'll talk about Vegas in a minute. Dallas in the A and the NFC East has fewer 1 o'clock Eastern start times than the Las Vegas Raiders out of the AFC West do. The NFL always finds a way to screw the Raiders. They did again this year.
I thought they were wanting to prop the Raiders up because they did give them a bunch of primetime games, but not that helps them win games. It's just they're putting them a little bit. The Vegas effect was, at least I felt it. We'll get to the Raiders when we get to the Raiders. We got the D's to the Dallas
Let's
Cowboys.
Talk Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit Lions.
Detroit. Let me pull up their schedule real quick because Detroit. I can't think of a team that I can remember in recent history whose week 1 game is more meaningful than the Lions. All right, Lions have week 1 against the Bears. They're short favorite. They're like 1.5 point favorites. Or they were last night. I didn't look at those this morning. But they were 1.5 point favorites. I'm looking at week 2. Idiot. Penny's at 2.5 right now. Everyone else is at 1.5, which tells you what you want to know. That week 1 game against Chicago. Again, this is a Lions team with a coach who's on the hot seat. Okay. Patricia doesn't come back. GM's on the hot seat. They got to win this year. They open at home against Detroit. Next 4 after that, at Green Bay, at Arizona, home versus New Orleans, then another back-to-back on the road, then home against Indy, then Minnesota. I mean, it eases up a little bit down the stretch. For sure it eases up. They don't have all the road games. But that week 1 game for the Lions, if they lose to the Bears and then they got the Packers, Arizona, and New Orleans, the next 3, and they're, now they're 0-4. And now it's rebuild mode, and Patricia's on the. I mean, the Lions' schedule that number 1, it makes me want to bet on them week 1 against Chicago because literally, if they lose that, they're dead. Okay. So the importance of that game is real. But number 2, it's one of those deals where if things start to go south for Detroit, it's going to go south ugly. And that is certainly a concern for me in that regard. NFC North, again, they face the AFC South, which is a bet against division, and the NFC South, which is neutral as a group. But
it makes me look towards the Lions under everything you're saying here. I mean, just because of the snowball effect, and then it just gets to a point where they won't be able to get out.
The Detroit, like Atlanta, with a team, I'm like, there's some hope. There's some hope. They got to when you have a team with a good quarterback, there's some hope. Okay, and Stafford is good, and Ryan is good. You say this, but the more you look at the schedule, the less excited you are about either of those 2 teams having a good season.
Okay, Teddy. So is that it for the D's? Can we move on to?
Let's talk some Packers.
Next NFL. Green Bay. All right, all the way to the G's. Here we go.
Well, there's no teams between D's and G's in the NFL unless you're going to make up the England. We
could get there one day, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the Packers, we talked about the Packers that achieved last year. They won all the 1-score games. Things broke right in a lot of different ways for Green Bay. Well, guess what? Potential exists again for things to break right in a lot of ways for Green Bay. Look at their schedule down the stretch. All right. Chicago at home, Philly at home, at Detroit, Carolina at home, Tennessee at home, at Soldier Field in the finale. So even if they struggle early, very easy to picture a 5-1, 6-0, 4-2 if things go wrong finish for Green Bay. A team that I was looking to bet under, that the weakness of their late season schedule makes me less likely to do that.
Okay. Makes total sense. I mean, 13-3, I would look towards the under, but you're right. I mean, I could see something there, motivation factor for Aaron Rodgers, him looking to kind of, I don't know. I'm just not looking to bet the under on the Packers either for that reason.
Well, it's a team that won 13 games last year, and their line this year is, slightly better than mediocre, I mean, Green Bay, we're looking right now with, 8.5s. Westgate is a 9, but it's mostly 8.5s on the Pack. And that's, it's a slightly, that's good, but not great. And last year they made the NFC Championship game and won 13 games. So on paper, they look great, even though from a power ranking perspective, and we knew that they weren't great. They were just good. Okay.
Guys, we're about halfway through here on the opening line report each and every Monday here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, at Teddy_covers on Twitter, at Drew Martin Betts. Feel free to throw out any questions in the chat box on Twitter, and we'll answer them here at the end. Teddy, what's the next team up?
And we're more than halfway. I had more notes on early teams than I do on late teams, for what it's worth. Okay. But we probably have 10, 15 minutes left. I would say maybe more. We'll see how we do, Drew. The Texans. Let's talk about the Texans, who, from all indications, had a dismal offseason. Everyone hates Bill O'Brien even more than they ever did. A team that's won 4 of the last 6 AFC South titles faces, when we look at Houston and compare them with Indy, which we'll do in a minute, it's an enormous difference, even though 14 of their 16 games, or really 12 of their 16 games, come against common opponents. The 4 that don't are significant when it comes to Houston and Indy. But for the Texans, look at the schedule out of the gate. All right, here's a team that's going through some rebuilding, not rebuilding, but went through an offseason where there were a lot of changes. So it's not like you expect them to come out. Yeah, you have still coach and quarterback and systems in place. But a lot of changes on the defense side of the football, a lot of personnel change on the offensive side of the football. They open up at Kansas City, then versus Baltimore, then Pittsburgh, then Minnesota, at Tennessee, and then Green Bay before the bye. 6 of their first 7 games are tough. That is not a bet-on schedule for Houston coming out of the gate. And again, you talk about that start to the season. They go into the bye 2-5, and how secure is O'Brien's job? We all hate O'Brien. We all know that he's a clown, but I'm not sure how that ownership does, being that he's the.
And he's got a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Eddie.
What?
He's got a heck of a good quarterback that solves a lot of problems.
Sure, it's a Russell Wilson. When you got a quarterback that wins games by himself, it makes all your coaches look a whole lot smarter.
Exactly.
All that said, that opener for Houston, that opening salvo before the bye is brutal. I cannot bet the Texans over, despite the market's devaluation. Again, we talk about Green Bay and Houston. The markets have been basically giving, both these teams the bird the whole offseason. Really, bet against. And schedule-wise, now the schedule came out, you're like, yeah. Certainly for the Texans. Not so much for the Packers. So let's talk about, and just real quick, let me bring that in with Indy, because with Houston, all right, they play, so 12 of the 16 games are the same. The AFC South playing NFC North and AFC North. Okay? But Houston plays 2 games against the Colts, and the Colts play 2 games against the Texans, so that's 2 differences. The other 2 games that are different, Houston won the division last year. They get to play Kansas City and New England. Indy did not win the division last year. They were the 3rd place team. They get to play the Jets and the Raiders. Okay.
Big difference.
That's a big difference. Playing KC and New England versus the Jets and the Raiders. From a strength of schedule standpoint, you can understand why Indy is one of the weakest in the NFL. And again, you face the AFC North as well. Which is one of the tougher, but it's not the Colts schedule is a not good notch or 2 weaker than the Texans schedule, even though they're comparable. They're not that comparable. That's why Indy's getting a whole lot of love and Houston maybe not so much.
All right, Teddy. Next team, Miami Dolphins. We got somebody in between here.
So there was with Miami. There was like schedule wise. Did anything stand out to you? There wasn't anything that stood out to me on Miami. I'm like, yeah, I really want to talk about this. This changed my opinion about the Dolphins. I was thinking about betting them under, but now I'm not gonna. I was thinking about betting them over. It's just a schedule.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much one. Maybe a little positive, just because not too many issues there. I mean, the Raiders day after Christmas is that something that it was intriguing to me as an interesting game, a fun one to watch, but nothing strength of schedule wise.
Sure, from a scheduling standpoint, a lot of times I'm looking for games in groups. How do the games group out? Do you have a particularly tough stretch here that leaves the rest of your schedule super easy? Do you have a stretch where you're early in the season or late in the season that could really help or hinder your chances in any one given game? I mean, Miami has that nice 3-game homestand in December with Cincy, KC, and New England, but it's KC and New England, I mean, you don't want to their schedule is not brutal. The AFC East faces NFC West and AFC West, which are two of the tougher divisions, but then Miami gets the bottom feeder because they have the last place schedule. But it's certainly not a schedule that the schedule itself didn't change my opinion about whether I want to bet the Dolphins over under one bit. And really what I was trying to focus on here was this schedule has, there's something to note here. There's something that changed my opinion, even just a little bit. And here's a nuance that maybe you want to point. I'm just trying to, and Miami didn't have that. It was just all right. Okay. They are what they are. And plus, you skip the Chargers, we have to talk about.
The Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, not to be confused with the San Diego Chargers, but what do we got on the Bolts?
Often confused with the San Diego Chargers, still.
Yeah.
And even in the new stadium, they will be confused with the San Diego Chargers still, even though they're playing in LA at SoFi Stadium. With the Chargers, look at their schedule to open the season. We talk about the teams that have it brutal. And then you talk about a team like Arizona. The Chargers were not a team I was high on at all. And then I'm like, they open at Cincy, KC at home, Carolina at home, at Tampa, at New Orleans. Say, that's tough. Then the Jets at Miami, the Jags at home, Raiders at home. So you have 3 tough games, KC, Tampa, New Orleans, and you got 6 teams you can beat. 6 teams are yours, So I thought the Chargers schedule played out very nicely for them. And, of course, NFC South, AFC East, for that AFC West, AFC East being a weaker division. Chargers were a team I wanted to bet under the win total. And given this schedule, again, when you get Cincy, Carolina, the Jets, Miami, the Jags, and the Raiders all pre-bye, those are beatable teams, every one of them. Not one of those teams is good. They're all either bad or mediocre.
And especially with a young quarterback. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be named the starter for sure or anything like that. But if it is, I would rather the easy games in the front end of the schedule, Teddy.
Yeah, if you ask me who, let's make it interesting. You ask me who the Chargers quarterback is going to be on October 1st. I'd say Tyrod Taylor. I think Taylor starts and goes.
Okay.
I think Herbert sits.
Yeah, no strong disagreement here. I guess, I didn't even think about that.
And we have to note, if they win all their winnable games, they're 6-3 going into the bye, and Herbert sits on the bench the rest of the way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times for the longevity of the organization, that's a really good thing. Not that Herbert was really high on my list to be a great NFL quarterback as it is, but Tyrod Taylor, I think, is underrated.
And if you have a Justin Herbert on your roster, what you want him to do is sit and learn. There's the quarterbacks that have a chance to sit and learn have a huge edge over the quarterback. And I understand the game time, but the actual playing time. Give me a quarterback that can sit and learn for a year, that pays attention. And I'd much rather have that guy than the guy that even if the other guy's the eliter level prospect.
All right, Teddy. What's next team up, man?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk 3 more. All right.
Okay.
Let's talk 3 more teams. I know we're running a little bit. Well, maybe we'll talk 4 more. Rams. Let's talk the Rams. And LA's a team. The markets are down in LA. On all the teams the markets have kind of been spitting on, I think there's hope for the Rams. I do. I think their defense is better than it was last. They lost a bunch of big names. You look at what they brought in. This is a team that is being devalued in the markets right now. And I'm like, yeah, maybe let's find something good to bet get on the Rams. Look at their schedule after the bye. At home against Seattle, at Tampa, San Fran at home, at Arizona, New England. They got Seattle and Arizona again down the stretch. That's a tough slate. It really is for the Rams. I may still get there with LA over. I'll tell you this: I'm not betting Rams under. And again, when we look at those the schedule, the NFC West teams have that edge: AFC East and NFC East, which are 2 of the 3 weakest divisions based on this year's win total. So I do think there are some things to like about the Rams. That post-bye schedule concerns me significantly. Let's talk Tampa. Tampa's got a fascinating schedule. And again, there's stuff we could talk about with Philly and Pittsburgh, but it didn't stand out to me. Like I said, they're just schedules. I'm like, this didn't make me change my opinion about the team. Tampa's schedule, they have those 5 TV games in a 7-week span mid-season. The Sunday night game, and then the Monday night game, and then another Sunday night game, and then 2 weeks later another Monday night game where they're and then they have KC in the Fox 4:00 game or the CBS 4:00 game the week after that. I mean, that's a crazy schedule of TV games for the Bucs. And then they get their bye, and then Minnesota at home, at Atlanta, at Detroit, Atlanta at home. That closeout for the Bucs, the 4 December games, you can make a strong case they go 4-0 there. So even if Tampa gets beat up a little bit early, if you want to bet futures on the Bucs, you've already missed it. All right? Wait until after that brutal stretch in November. Maybe they're a 500 team after they play the Chiefs. And then you look at you get a much better price on Tampa then than you will right now. If you want to bet the Bucs futures, pray they get blown out by KC before the bye. That's your best case scenario. And the last 4 games, very reasonable to go 4-0 during that stretch. And your price on the Bucs will be much better then than it is now, potentially. But right now, in terms of betting Tampa, there's not endless value.
And you could see all those TV games coming with Tom Brady heading to Tampa. We also got Prez in the chat box saying, guys, make sure to come back 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock noon right here. Teddy will be interviewing Lawrence Presman. So that should be a fun one. Teddy, take it easy on Prez.
Yeah, so I should have promoted this off the top. I apologize. He asked me to promo from the top. Okay, this is going to be fun. All right. Me and Prez, what are we, frenemies? I'm not going to take.
I think you're friends. Yeah.
Yeah, we're friends. Me and Prez have been friends for many years. All that said, if I get a chance to embarrass him in front of everyone, you better believe I'm going to take that. It's going to be fun, and so help me, it's got to be funny. Today's going to be funny. So again, noon Pacific, 3 East Coast. Check it out. Me and Prez right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Right back here at 3 o'clock Eastern, guys. And also tomorrow, same time, 1 o'clock Eastern time, we got the college football preview show. So we got that coming as well. A couple teams left here, guys. Appreciate everybody. If you'd smash the like button, the thumbs up button, that will help us out. So, Teddy, what's next team up here?
Let's do one more. This one, and again, this is a team with a low win total. And a lot of times the teams with a lower win totals, you're like, all right, let's find a way to get over. Look at the Redskins and find me 6 wins on their schedule. Go.
Dallas Cowboys twice.
Let's give them 3-3 in division. Let's give Washington 3.
I'm just going with their division.
Okay. Let's go. Let's give them a split with everybody. Find me 3 more wins on their schedule.
For the sake of good streaming TV here, Teddy, I don't have the schedule in front of me. So
good, I'll run it through you. I'll run it through you. But NFC East plays AFC North and NFC West, 2 of the 3 tough divisions. All right, so we're going to give the Redskins 2 upsets and a win over the Giants at home in division. Their other games, at Arizona,
Bengals,
at Cleveland, versus Baltimore, versus the Chargers, at Detroit, Bengals at home, at Pittsburgh, at San Fran. Oh, wait. Sorry. Yeah, at San Fran, Seattle at home, Carolina. Yeah, they could beat maybe at Detroit. They could beat maybe Cincy at home. They could beat Carolina. So in a best case scenario, if they go 3-3 in division, they go over 5-8, and they win their other 3. They win a road game at Detroit, and win Carolina, or if they beat every bottom feeder that they have a chance to beat, they could get to 6-6. They get to 6-10. But that's if everything breaks right in those games. Yeah, and if they go 3-3 in division. Redskins schedule stood out to me a little bit as being not a pretty one. The Washington's going to be a sub 500 team again this year.
All right, Teddy, I like it. And that's the last one you wanted to bring up, because I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah, go.
Okay. Interesting part of the scheduling, the stuff that I always look for, maybe even the most important here, about the San Francisco 49ers and the New England Patriots, 2 teams that we didn't really hit on. So I'll do first the San Francisco 49ers. They play at New York in weeks 2 and 3. And of course, New York, the 2 teams there, the Jets and the Giants. One, do you think they'll stay in New York for those? And how would you handicap those weeks and their full season right there?
And I had notes on New England right here with what you're going to talk about with staying in LA.
That's the next one.
Skip past it. The Patriots will absolutely stay in LA. It's a huge edge for the Patriots to be able to stay in LA as opposed to having 2 West Coast trips versus 1. And they get 3 consecutive home games as well with that. So there's a big schedule boost for New England. For San Fran, we remember last year what they did. They opened week 1. Who'd they beat week 1? They had back-to-back. I remember week 2 was Cincinnati, and I had them week 1 as well. I had them in both those games. Was it Jacksonville maybe or Tampa?
I don't know.
I don't know. They opened in Florida and they went up to. But the point is that Shanahan kept them back east for the week, and they came out the next week against Cincinnati, and that game was over in the first quarter. So benefit for the 49ers. I'm confident they'll stay east in back-to-back weeks when they play the Jets. So disadvantage for the Jets because they get them on the second week. Advantage for San Fran because they're already going to be there.
And Teddy, the second one, the Patriots playing at Los Angeles in weeks 13 and 14 against the Chargers and Rams. As of the Rams one, the second one's actually on a Thursday night, so that's even more of a plus. I don't know if the Rams have a bye.
The Rams have to travel to come back home for that game.
Oh wow, that's going to be a sharp play.
Arizona. It's not a big travel, but it's still a travel. So yeah, a big benefit for the Patriots, no question.
And I know in college, whenever that happens, and it's very few, but they'll usually practice at like a high school there and try to get recruiting ties. Do you know where the NFL teams practice when that's the scenario?
I'm trying. They're not practicing at a high school. They're practicing usually college. I'm trying to remember where the Niners did it last year. I don't remember offhand, but they practiced it somewhere reasonable. Obviously, it's NFL players.
Okay. All right, Teddy. Well, yeah, man, great stuff overall. We got guys in the chat box here chiming in. We got a little, I think, a question here off of Twitter. But Teddy, is there anything you wanted to throw out there to everybody watching about the scheduling and conclusion?
No. So we talked about the show today at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern with Prez, and that's gonna. So help me God, I'm gonna laugh that entire show. I'm gonna keep flicking him until he says something funny. That should be a lot of fun. Drew, obviously we got pods. You got pods every day this week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and of course we'll do the NFL opening line report. We're gonna do it all summer. Starting next week, we'll go back into breaking down divisions, but we'll break them down hard. So that's what I got, and then whatever else. And thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and let me know what question we have from Twitter, from the chat box, please.
From Twitter, we got Hobbs saying, have you spoken to any line makers as to what the thinking is for home field without fans. In the NFL, I believe the average was a field goal. So without fans this year, if that's the case, how would that affect your home field advantage?
Yeah, so the NFL has that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. Historically, the NFL's home field has been worth anywhere between the standard is about 2.75. You do have home fields that are worth more, and you also have home fields that are worth less. The Jags home field isn't necessarily worth as much as the Vikings home field, for example. So in I've talked with odds makers, talked with other bettors, and there's a fairly wide divergence of opinion about how much the home field is worth in the current era. Remember, the teams still have to travel, so there's still some negativity for the road team. You can't say the home field is worth nothing. It's still worth something. The question is how much. Yeah. And with the weaker home field edges, your Bengals of the world will be hurt less because they didn't have as much of a home field edge to begin with. I'm not sure that I buy that argument. I'm going into the season mentally 1.5 as my base number for what the home field is worth. I will adjust by team, and I will adjust consistently throughout the course of the season to try to get an accurate number. But mentally, I'm going in 1.5 right now as what I'm going to use for a home field across the board week one, and then I'll adjust, a half point here, a half point there based on whatever nuances I find.
All right, Teddy, let's finish it with this one. Last question here, Connor, bringing up the Jags in the chat box. Jags, for the first time since 2012, will have all their home games at home with no international games this year in the NFL due to the pandemic. Do you think that actually helps Jackson betting on them?
No. Jacksonville's got a bad team. Jacksonville doesn't have a great home field edge. And I thought they had the fact that they go to London every year and other teams don't. Some years that's giving them an edge. But again, you look at the home games for the Jags, and again, you're like just showing what the ticket prices are. There's not a single home game for the Jags right now that's priced with tickets higher than you can get tickets for $50 or less for all of them. It's not a huge home field advantage.
Yeah, I know from personal experience, Teddy, if the pandemic kind of secedes and you're allowed to go to NFL games, don't buy the tickets to the Jags games because you can get them for free outside with the radio stations. Yeah. If you're paying any more than $10 for a Jags game, I would advise you not to.
Yeah. So the fact that they don't play a London game this year, that doesn't make me like Jacksonville anymore. I'm not high on the Jags.
All right, Teddy. Hey, awesome show, man. And thanks to everybody in the chat box. It was live. We got Rob Vino, Andrew McGinnis. What's up, man? LA Grant, Connor. Thanks to everybody out there. Roger Long, Abel as well. Ski Prophet, our boy. So for Teddy Covers, I am Drew Martin. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Be back 3 o'clock Eastern time. Teddy and Prez. It's going to be a fun one. Best of luck with your bets. And remember to wash your hands, guys. Best of luck.